All right, everybody, welcome to the Creative Finance Collective. Thanks for joining us. Today we got here with us uh, myself, Andy Fowler, and we got Scott Horne and Sean St. Clair. Thanks, guys, for being with us. We're here to talk about creative financing. So if you have questions, we're taking questions about creative finance and talking about real estate more generally. Scott, how you been? It's been a couple weeks.
Well, we've been surviving at least,
Yeah.
working through. I, I, I despise year end in the real estate business. Everybody wants to get everything done yesterday as fast as possible. Although it's been a short time thereafter, you have to work your way through, of course, New Year's and all this stuff. And people in your office, they all want off. And, just dealing with all the things. And of course, in Dallas, we had a little bit of snow and ice that shut us down last Thursday and Friday. But other than just those kind of items, we've just been picking up speed and getting back on the same track we've always been on.
Yeah, Sean, what about you? You had to have had some ice and snow.
Where's your fishing pole, Sean? We thought you'd be out ice fishing, or are you using
Oh
dynamite today
no.
or something?
Oh man, I'm not gonna go out there and ice fish. We every once in a while we'll drive by and see some folks out on the river and they're ice fishing, and definitely not for me. But no, we really haven't had any. We were supposed to have a huge snowstorm come, not huge, but large snowstorm come through Sunday, and we had a little bit of snow, but nothing really major, and nothing coming up. Just some cold weather. I think the end of or the start of next week, I want to say it's going to be a high of 3, I think, on one day. So and into the negatives at night. So that'll be interesting. But otherwise, it's things are good.
Good. Well, as we wait for questions here for those who are joining us, I got one topic I thought I'd bring up from a question I ran into today. Um, if you are, before I get into that, if you are just joining us, we just came on live. We're on for an hour until we stop getting questions. So if you want us to answer questions relating to creative finance, make sure to post them in the chat. That's what we're here for. That's what that's what our plan is. So make sure to post those questions and we'll get to those. I got posed a question on an old matter that we've discussed a number of times on the collective, but I thought I'd bring it up because the question was posed kind of as if they knew I was going to answer the question, but then changed the hypothetical slightly, which to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. It didn't change my analysis at all, but it kind of made me think people are approaching this question the wrong way. And the question was about, the old, can I just kind of have a pocket deed in lieu of foreclosure so I can just have that in the event of default of some kind, So my answer was no, we're not going to do that. As to this question, and I said, the reason we ought to just always foreclose anyway as a benefit to you is it cleans title, and you never know what's recorded against the property and what might be out there. You certainly could research it, but I didn't really have any confidence they were going to go research these kind of things. And they said, well, our lien was second position anyway. It was a second position lien. We weren't getting rid of the first, so why does it matter? That was the question. Why does it matter? I'm in second position. I'm always going to be taking it subject to the first getting it back. So I might as well just do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And I thought that was pretty short-sighted in thinking, but I thought it might be worthwhile addressing why, if you're a second position lien holder, why does it matter? I mean, and of course I explained, there's all other sorts of liens, right, that could happen, Scott, I know you taught a class on liens. You don't have to be a second position lien holder to really care about that, do you?
No, this is such old hat stuff. Everybody thinks, the word out there is this is a performance deed, right? Is that the new little buzzword they want to
Yeah.
call it? It's nothing really more than a deed in lieu of foreclosure that, if title was to look at something like this, where you bought the house on January 1st and you took a deed in lieu back on January the 1st, because it has to be dated and notarized the same time frame, but it's not recorded for 2 years, they're going to go, what the heck? Is the first thing. And then, of course, back in the early 1990s, I met with several law firms around the Texas marketplace, guys that were pretty, heavy hitters in the banking world and whatnot about this. And every single lawyer's position was the same. It was no, now if you wrote in there where you gave proper notices and various issues along the way to give someone a chance to cure, just like any other issue, maybe that would be okay. But Texas, for instance, you're able to foreclose so quickly, it's not really an issue. Because here in Arizona, for instance, you guys, it takes 6 months to foreclose. What's your time frame up in Wisconsin, Sean?
Oh, much longer than that, because we're a mortgage / which means we're a judicial foreclosure state. You're talking with redemption rights and everything. If it's a primary residence, you're talking at least a year, if not a year and a half, to foreclose. But so one thing though, with Arizona, we're 90 days for foreclosure. However,
does that start to finish?
Yeah. Yep, 90 days. Now, for a federally insured loan, the feds have new or different restrictions, right? You have to wait 120 days and blah, 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 all that. But if you're a private lender, you can foreclose, if there's a default as defined in the loan documents, you can record your notice of trustee sale and foreclose in 90 days. However, if you want a faster time frame, you could do an agreement for sale and put a servicing agent in place. And now you can reduce it's not a foreclosure, but you can forfeit the purchaser's interest in less than 30 days, depending on how much of the principal has been paid. I believe it's, Andy, you might know better than I think it's 0 to 20% is the 30-day period.
That's right.
And if less than 20% of the principal has been paid, you can foreclose in 30 days. So, that is an option if you're worried about it and you think it's so important to be able to foreclose, lickety split, then, an agreement for sale, which frankly gives you almost all the benefits of a warranty deed. The only thing it doesn't provide you, in my opinion, is as much bankruptcy protection. So if the seller files for bankruptcy, you're subject to having that transaction unwound and parties placed back into the status quo while the trustee takes the property and sells it. So that's the biggest risk. But other than that, if you're worried about a foreclosure, do the agreement for sale, put a servicer in place, and you can foreclose, in short order, or forfeit in short order in Arizona.
Going back in your same light there for a minute, in Texas, so your agreement for sale in Arizona is our contract for deed. And of course, they break it up between a investment contract for deed, non-owner occupied versus owner occupied. And today, owner occupied contract for deeds are a no-no for buku reasons. But an investment contract for deed, okay, it's contract law. And you don't foreclose on an investment contract for deed, it's rescission of contract. And it's whatever the parties negotiate, 5 days, 30 days, whatever it might be. But these performance deeds in lieu of foreclosure, is the hot thing to try to get a seller to entice someone to sell the property to them on how they can be better protected. So, Sean, I do agree with you on those kind of items that might be one of the ways of doing it. I always talk to investors when they're bringing these things up. It's like, guys, if you're going to be in this game, I prefer you to own the property up front, give the seller a mortgage back, et cetera, because I don't want to be subject to all the issues that a seller could run into, as you just mentioned, bankruptcy, other liens that could attach to the property, these kind of things. And then selling it to a back-end buyer, that buyer is going to be a consumer. You better know the rules and regulations in the state that you're doing business, because every state's a little bit different. and know what it is you need to
Mhm.
navigate. But nobody wants to stop and think through it like we just talked about. They want to find the quick, easy solution. And this is what we're going to do because it's easy. And they're not thinking that they're really circumventing the foreclosure laws in the state where you're doing this. Texas has a statute that allows these to be unwound. Other states
Mhm.
may very well be the same. I don't know. And everybody's looking for that quick, easy fix. And I always try to tell them, it's like, stop. What are you trying to accomplish? How can you better protect your seller? Know what your foreclosure laws is so you can identify how fast they can do things and help them understand that to negotiate that deal with you. But if you're going to utilize a performance deed, at least these people called you, Andy,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a positive thing versus just doing it on their own, which they do anyway.
Well, and the slight take, the reason I brought it up is not to, because we've beat this topic to death, but the question kind of had a new take and kind of had a new assumption to it, which they approached it with, well, that's just something first position lien holders do, and if I know I'm in second, then kind of what's the point? And I'm like, man, there's a lot more to your lien position than, the first mortgage holder and the second mortgage holder. There's a
Well,
lot more to it.
I wonder how many of these people even go to the trouble to check title. What if this person whom they are getting the deed from, the deed in lieu from, has a IRS lien now, or various judgment liens based upon the street,
Yeah.
the state where you're located.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, all that attaches. So you take the deed back, you just bought all those liens on your property
Yeah.
versus foreclosing, which of course, wipes out all those items. It's just stopping to think. And, this is going to sound really bad, guys, because I'm going to use me as the example. I am an investor. And if my business partner is listening across the courtyard here, she's going to chuckle because I'm an investor. And when you're in this business, you become cheap. You learn how to buy houses cheap, get, cheaper contractors, buy cheaper materials, all those things. And that spills over to buying used cars, to buying, finding where you can go buy clothes at discount. It does everything in your life a little bit, it seems like. But the typical investor, unfortunately, has a mentality, if you're in this business long enough, you learn to be that way. And they don't want to come talk to you or me and pay us money for that consultation before they do it. They just want to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go save the buck. And unfortunately, that can cost them a whole lot down the road if they mess it up. Or other things, of course, can come from that as well.
Yeah. All right.
But second lien or not, as you brought up, to me, is absolutely irrelevant.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Second lien, third lien, doesn't matter. Same thing, only different. No.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that being something to even be thought about. But it's a thing. And there are several, we'll call them gurus out in the marketplace who really promote that.
Yeah. All right. So if you're just now joining us, this is the Creative Finance Collective. So we're here to talk about creative financing and take questions from the audience. We'll be on as long as we're getting questions. If you're watching, make sure to post it in the chat. We'd love to engage with you and answer those questions. We do have a question. Let me go ahead and read it to you from a YouTube listener. Interest rates are rising, and it doesn't look like the cost to borrow is going to get cheaper anytime soon. Is creative finance even a possible avenue for non-investor buyers? If so, how? Guys, just to follow up on this, I think I saw the average conventional mortgage interest rate. It's getting close to like 7.5%. It was, and they were comparing it to the same time last year where it was in the sixes, and now, the Fed cut interest rates. They've been cutting a little bit. Everybody thought that was going to make interest rates go the other way. They haven't. Things are expensive. I think a lot of people for a long time were sitting and they're like, well, I'll just jump in or I'll wait till it gets cheaper, and it's just not getting cheaper. So to the question, for the non-investor buyer, I guess every buyer in some ways an investor, but the non, quote unquote investor, somebody's like, well, things aren't getting cheaper. Maybe this is an avenue for me. Can they get into it? How would they even think about getting into creative finance? And what should they be thinking about doing if they want to make that attempt?
Well, I'm going to jump in before Sean does here, but first off, bank rates are going down. Mortgage rates are coming up a little bit. And I was actually having this conversation with someone yesterday or day before, and interest rates really aren't going to come down a whole lot more, I don't think. I think there's too many financial issues in the marketplace that preclude that from happening. You've got to do something that gets the national debt down. You got to keep the rates in a certain level so that can be, effectuated.
Mm-hmm.
So homeowners, can they buy properties subject to the debt in some format? Absolutely they can. And the issue there is not can they, the question is will they?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people are risk averse. What they don't understand, they run away from. And unless they get with the right people, by the way, what are you, the top two guys in Arizona that do this type of business? Because 99.9% of lawyers, if someone came to them and says, what do you think about me buying this home subject to the existing debt? What's the first answer going to be, Sean? No, right?
No.
It's the prevailing thought process, because what we lawyers don't know, you run from, and you avert it at all possibilities. And if people just understood the limited issues, and I want to bring up an important point I was told the other day by a loan servicer about HUD partial claims. But if a homeowner knew how rarely we have seen foreclosures, when a deal is properly structured, the loan is paid current, maintained, properly insured, etc., the great odds are it's not going to happen. And there might be some ways to disguise the transaction, allowing them to still maintain their any type of a homestead benefit for tax purposes on the property. It's a great deal. To this day, I have dealt with due on sale a total of 13 times. I mean, that's out of thousands and buku thousands of, is buku a word? Of deals that we have closed over the years, 13. And all 13 times we've been able to circumvent it and get around it and move forward. Now, does that mean on the 14th time it'll work? No. That's why you disclose things properly and everybody goes in with their eyes wide open. But if I'm a homeowner and I have either a distressed credit scenario, but I've got a good job, or I have a chance to buy. I closed a deal in Dallas. It's probably been a year ago now. And the guy was buying a $1.6 million home subject to the existing debt. Now in Dallas, that's expensive. California, it may not be so much, but that's a big deal for a sub-2 deal traditionally. His comment was simple. I get it. I understand the risk, but I'm getting a 2% interest rate. If I buy the house right now, I got to put 20% down. It was, $320,000 instead of $100,000 down payment. And I'm going to get a jumbo rate, that at that time was 7.5% or higher. It's like, I can pay this off tomorrow if I have to for cash. I'd be stupid not to do this. Now you find people who are intelligent like that, who think through the deal and they understand it. But the general public, in fact, I did a seminar the other day online, and one of the things I brought up was, when you're talking about this type of a deal to somebody, realize you're an investor. We investors, if you play this game, you kind of understand what's going on, right? You run in that crowd where other investors understand it. It's because that sphere of influence you're in all understands it. You think the whole world understands it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. They look at you and they go, what the heck are you talking about? Either you're going to buy my house or I'm subject to what? What does that mean? Who? I'm still liable on my debt for how long? What? And they don't get it. But if they find the right people, whether it's the right investment model, the right law firm, people who actually do understand this and can convey the validity of this to them, subject to the risk, however minimal it might be, it's a great opportunity for them. And here's why I wanted to bring up about, HUD partial claims. And I did not know this. So when a lender does a HUD partial claim, supposedly that loan goes back on the lender's books. And there is apparently something in the air right now where with HUD partial claims, these lenders are mining MLS, not MLS, but the deed records, trying to see if there has been a title conveyance in some format. And if they have the ability to eliminate that deal and get it off of their books, they're doing that. And of course, in most cases, able to put the money out at a higher rate. And I heard that, you kind of go, okay, kind of makes sense. I know why lenders usually don't do it. But when I heard that, I'm going, okay, they're able to clear it off their books, do this, do that. There is a different benefit to that lender to do those things. And anyway, it made me think a little bit. I hadn't heard that before.
Interesting. I'd be curious to research that a little bit more, because the HUD partial claims, the deeds of trust are actually not in favor of the lender, but
of HUD.
To
Yep.
HUD. Yeah. And it says it in the deed of trust that HUD has made an insurance payment to the lender to bring the loan current. So it's like, so I'm not sure I fully appreciate the inner workings of all of that and how the lender then really cares, other than they basically got caught up through a HUD payment. Now they may have to pay HUD back, although no, they may not have to pay HUD back, because HUD is the one with the second, so the payment would go to HUD and not the lender. So I'm not sure.
I'm going to put two of you guys together and let y'all have that conversation. Pretty knowledgeable fellow.
Well, interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious how that all works. But to answer the question, and I've a few comments on consumer sub-twos and getting traditional homeowners to buy and sell subject to. So number one, there's a major problem with the real estate agents out there. And they're running around and they're being taught by others and their brokers and stuff that subject to is illegal and is fraudulent, which it isn't. And what's funny is I've had this conversation with some real estate agents, and it's the same agents that I worked with during the short sale days who are saying this. And I'm like telling them, well, it's just an efficient breach. No. It's, I'm like, wait a minute. You were doing short sales back in the day, and you were telling your sellers not to pay their mortgage because it would make the short sale easier. That's an efficient breach. That's all, you're talking about. I'm not even sure a sale is a breach. I think it gives the lender an additional right or remedy under the contract. And that's what the language of most due on sale clauses say, is that the lender may, at its option, now have this right. But so I think that's part of the problem with not making it available. The second is finding enough sellers to make it worthwhile. And what I mean by that is these sellers are doing an analysis. They, most of the time, or a lot of sellers are willing to sell their property and move. They just don't want to buy another house that's, at 7% interest when they have a 2.8% interest sitting out there, right? I mean, that's dumb. But if there were if there was a big enough marketplace for this transaction, you could envision a scenario where somebody's like, oh, I'm ready to either downsize or I'm ready to upgrade my house. And there's enough availability of people willing to do this subject to transaction that I would then could list my house and do a subject to, knowing that I could jump into another subject to, right? But the problem is we don't have that marketplace. I mean, if somebody could create like, their own MLS or some type of marketplace where, sub twos are listed as being possibilities with sellers, and people could see like, hey, I could sell my house, and if I was willing to do sub two, I could jump over here and get that same interest rate for, this house down the street or whatever the case may be, where I can downsize or upgrade or whatever. I think you would have a lot more sellers, being considering that. The problem is there's just a real tight market for that, and so people are sitting there hoarding their properties at the lower interest rates because of the fact that they don't see the opportunity later on to be able to basically swap houses. I mean, that's the bottom line. Third is like Scott said, it's the attorneys. There's not enough people out there, kind of, professionals who are willing to step up and assist with this type of transaction. So it really would be awesome for there to be a whole marketplace of this, and I think you would see actually more listings, more properties on the market, more sales taking place if this were more of a standard commonplace transaction and people, were willing to understand it.
I'll say this, that so first off, if a seller came to me with this situation, I would probably recommend a mirror wraparound versus a subject to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives a seller more control, and it gives them the ability to do a balloon payment if they wish to do so, and those kind of things. And because this is an owner-to-owner type transaction, all of these issues under Dodd-Frank and the SAFE Act and RESPA, et cetera, even in Texas, the Texas Property Code, are pretty much exempt. So that's a good thing in that regard for a true owner-to-owner, where you take the investor model out of the middle. I know that in Texas, we have a class for realtors that we promote that helps to educate realtors that this is a viable tool when the situation arises, and that they just need to know what the resources are and where they can go. Because most realtors, if they don't, it's kind of like us lawyers. If we don't know how to do something, we steer away from it, or we don't know enough about it. We don't suggest a client, do it. And I think realtors, because they don't have enough information, one, they're not ever taught this. And of course, they're always taught, you can't do it, it's illegal, it's this, it's that, you name it. They're taught all the negativity of it. They miss that positive aspect of it. But then also they don't know what resources to go to. They go call, XYZ title company, right? And they go, yeah, no, we can't do that. Okay, deal dies, automatically move on. And if they just know the resources of what they can do and where they can go to do this, then, as you said, it becomes a much more viable scenario. There is a gentleman out of Austin, Texas. It's actually one of Alan Chesker's clients who is trying to do this on a national level and do training for realtors about this, to educate them on how valid this can be. And it's not just doing a true subject to or a mirror wrap per se. It's really trying to do, if you need to sell your home, you can do this with a wraparound mortgage. You can put a balloon payment in it, and it helps that buyer. It's kind of like a lease option in a sense, where that buyer has the opportunity then to go out and seek third-party financing and go ahead and get it done. So if there is some potential credit issues on that buyer's back end side a little bit, they've got time to create that. And I always teach people out there that if you want a buyer to truly refinance your home, don't give them a lease option. Put them in a mortgage, create a pay history, use a servicer, create the viable tools you need that helps that buyer get into a mortgage and understanding how a mortgage world works. but there's just a huge amount of education needed. It needs to have the right people like y'all and us who understand how to talk to people about this, share the pros and cons appropriately, and then let them go do it. But, if I was a homeowner, heck yes. If I'm looking for a house, I'd be looking for it. And we run into people every day who get transferred. They have a low interest rate loan. They don't have an option. They have to get out. Or other things have happened from a negative perspective where they have to sell for some reason and they move on. Good. I mean, we just closed another large, $1.3 million deal down in the southwest part of Fort Worth just a few days ago. That was the exact same scenario, business failure, things of that nature. And I mean, a phenomenal interest rate on this loan, and a homeowner actually bought the property. Several investors tried to buy it, but it wasn't a good fit. And a homeowner came along and it was all handled right. But the realtor who was handling that deal, I'll brag a little bit. Guess who trained her? Okay. Yours truly. But she understood the game and had a resource where to go to take care of it. That's what she needed.
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, these agents are going to have to figure out how they're going to move inventory. And I think one of the ways that you're going to move inventory is, basically dipping into, the creative finance realm, whether that's straight, seller carry if properties are owned free and clear, or it's doing subject to. When I say subject to, that's my bad on my vernacular, but I don't do subject to transactions without a mere wrap or some type of wrap, even if it's a seller wrap, where the seller is going to do some seller financing. I always will wrap it with a note and deed of trust. But with that said, Andy knows, I went to undergrad at Chapman University, which is in Orange County, and every year they do their economic forecast. And it just so happens that at the top of my personal email is their, notes from their economic forecast that just came out. And they've been doing this for years, and it tends to be fairly accurate. But they're predicting come next year that inflation's not going to go down, and in fact will probably still go up. And as a result, you're still going to see the higher interest rates. They're not going to be adjusted or go down.
And higher home prices.
And if that's true, and higher home prices, and so they've predicted that the inventory for homes or home sales will go up like ever so slightly next year, but not much. And you're not going to see. It's going to basically be 2024 where, houses are staying on the market, at least in the Phoenix metro area, much longer. Prices are still high, but buyers are fewer and far between. And it really is an interest rate issue and an inventory issue. Nobody's wanting to sell their house because, if you have that low interest rate loan, you have that golden ticket. And there's only so many of those, and frankly, you probably aren't going to see rates that low, even if they go down. And so I think these real estate professionals are going to have to start looking into more creative ways to sell houses. And you guys both know that if a real estate agent were to write, seller is willing to, finance, or seller is willing to, convey subject to existing loans. If they put that in the MLS notes, they will have significant offers on that property immediately, despite the fact that maybe that property has been sitting on the market for 45 days. If they were to update that MLS listing and put that language in there, like that, they would have offers and multiple offers within a day or two.
We got an interesting comment, and I was kind of thinking about this earlier, but the YouTube listener says, do you think we'll see creative finance take off in a bigger way, first with families like parents to kids? And I think maybe we've talked about this at some point, Sean, but like, you've got a new generation of buyers coming in, right? And it's like, man, it's expensive and everything. But is this an opportunity? I'm not sure we've seen examples of this in any large degree, but it makes sense where this could happen, where you've got just parents like, well, we'll just sell you our place, subject to sell it to our kids, and with enough of that done over enough period of time, you get consumers and future realtors and so on and so forth used to the nature of the deal. I can't say. It seems like we do a lot of work, Scott. You do a lot of work for investors. Have you seen many families doing this from parent to kid or anything like that?
I've only seen one or two, and actually have someone here in Arizona doing that right now.
Mm,
But they're actually buying a home subject to in order to put their kids into it,
mm.
probably subject to from their perspective, just to help monetarily and to help, maybe control the deal a little bit and do those things. You don't see a lot of that right now. Could it be? Absolutely. But again, I think the issue is not could they do it? The issue is would they do it? But they don't know to do it.
Yeah,
I
they
think
don't
is the
even
biggest
know.
issue.
Yeah.
No, and if you don't know what you don't know, yeah, you ain't going to do it. So more education, more exposure, more viability. And then again, you go back to that same old adage we said earlier, is that risk aversion. Everybody's scared to death of their shadow.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, no, you can lead that horse to water.
But what's funny is what's the risk?
Almost none.
There
Yeah.
is none.
Because you can just unwind it, bring it back, and you're done.
Right.
No, the Garden St. Germain Act has an exception that allows children to go on title without due on sale.
Oh, does it really?
Being invoked.
Well,
Yeah.
Sean, I learned something
It's
new here, Bubba.
Yeah, it's a transfer where the spouse or children of the borrower become an owner of the property. It's an exception to the Garden St.
Awesome.
Germain Act.
So the parents can't call it due.
The lender can't call it due.
right.
The
Yeah.
parents
So
could.
the lender can't
Yeah,
call it
parents
due.
could.
Oh,
Yeah, well, if the child
Yeah.
breaches, yeah, the parents could, but yeah, they can transfer. You can transfer it to your kids all day long and not be subject to due on sale. It doesn't matter if it's FHA, VA, whatever, or if it's federally insured. All bets are off when you talk about transferring it to your
no,
child.
that's awesome. And by the way, Andy, if I was a parent doing that to my kid, heck yes, I'm gonna have a due on sale clause in there and other things of that nature. Just until such time as I got a proven record,
Yeah. Well, that's how you teach them, right?
It's kind of like, even, don't laugh at this, guys, but even in, when my wife and I created our wills and whatnot, I learned a long time ago, access to money ain't a good thing when you're young.
Yeah.
It screws you up. And my kids don't see a penny unless for health, safety, and maintenance under a spendthrift trust until they're 40.
Oh,
Get off your butt, go out there and make things happen and learn how to make a living.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, 40 wouldn't be the oldest that I've seen in one of those documents. I had a client do 50 years old.
Oh, man.
And the worst thing is I could change my daughter to probably 30 pretty easily. And I'd push my son to maybe 50. We boys learn slow, is what I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Well, it really is, access to creative finance, to everybody's point, is really a question of knowledge. And, the same listener asked earlier, and Sean, you addressed it, but are there real estate agents that know how to find subto deals? And, I think the problem with every real estate transaction is there's two agents involved, and you got to hope that both of them know what the heck that would be and are able to, knowledgeably communicate that to, to their respective clients. And the market's got a long way to go before, there's any sense of that. Now, could you reach out to find the right people that might refer you to lawyers? Sure, but you got to know what you're reaching out for, and so on and so forth. So that's just a chicken or the egg problem that hopefully the market works works through and works out, because it would provide, as we're learning, some pretty awesome opportunities for buyers that maybe otherwise would have had a lot more difficulty getting into the space. I think as the cost of capital increases, and you could see scenarios where a lot of people, more people might have the money to put down on a home than have the ability to manage whatever that, the cost to, carry that over 30 years. You know what I mean? At whatever the interest rate is. It's going to get, it used to be when I was first buying a house, it was easier to maybe make the payment. It was harder to come up with the 20% down. Now I could see a lot of people coming up with the 20% down, but like, I can't afford a 7% on an $800,000 home or a $600,000 home, depending on what the median home price is in a given area. So,
And nobody has that appetite for that $200,000 house, right? They all want that $800,000 house or that $1 million home. Even though they can't afford it, they still want it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're Americans, Scott. We don't want anything small, or, it's all got to be big, giant kitchens, stainless appliances.
Like Sean's house?
Yeah, well, that's how they do it near the ice station.
My house is man, it's only 1,200.
Is it an igloo?
Right now it is, but it's by the lake, by the downtown. It's in a great location, so we like that part of it. But it's not a very big, big.
It helps you
house.
keep down that heating bill up yonder.
Oh yeah. Although utilities, man, they're so much cheaper up here than down in Arizona.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
You don't even want to know. You have a condo, right? Down in Arizona?
We have a house. Yeah.
Have a house. Have you had a summer electric bill yet?
Yes.
Oh, you'll know.
Yes.
You would know.
I mean, grant you, I don't see them.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
maybe I need to look at those checks that are going out the door a little bit more closely.
Oh, yeah.
See-
it's in.
See, Scott, right? Like right now, your utilities are nothing in Arizona, because we don't even turn on our heat for the most part. It's just like, just goes. But then all of a sudden, July hits, and it's like, oh, that's what it costs to keep a house cool.
I wonder if I need to put up one of those.
Bills.
You may have seen these over some public pools and whatnot. They'll put these on big steel posts going up, and a vinyl mesh that lets the sunlight come through, but it's diffused and it keeps things a lot cooler and those kind of items. Can I just put that up over the house? Does that work to keep the sun off?
Yeah, the HOA will love that. Go do that.
I don't think I have an HOA.
Oh, okay. Well,
You don't have it. How is it you don't have
Well,
an HOA?
I say I don't have one.
That's
Don't ask
that's
me to
almost
swear to that,
impossible.
okay?
is that stack of letters?
Yeah, that's
But I
almost
don't-
impossible.
I don't
Maybe
have
you
an
don't.
HOA.
There's older
I'm going
parts
to
of
reserve comments.
Yeah, there's older parts of Scottsdale that don't have HOAs.
But yeah,
but-
most do.
Are you over by our office?
We're down off of Indian School, about 3/4 of a mile west of the 101.
It's kind of old Scottsdale, right?
Yeah, that probably doesn't
And there's
have
a
an
police
HOA.
station there,
Yeah.
and we're literally right behind the police station.
Yeah. I know right where. Yeah, I know right where that is. Yeah, you probably don't have an HOA.
No,
down
and
there.
it may, but hey, for us, it's decent shelter, a place to stay, a place to hang out when we're down here. Throw
It is a
wild
great
parties,
location.
Yeah.
Well, you're not too far off of Old Town Scottsdale,
Yeah,
man.
we're about a couple 2-3 miles.
You gonna? Yeah, you hit that up regularly.
Sean, do you think I like to go shopping and all that crap? Come on.
He goes the other direction towards the casino.
Absolutely, or the golf course, but we do go down there sometimes because Susan has her sister works for a art gallery, and the guy that owns it, he's a lot of fun to hang out with. He's a nice guy, does a lot of bronze sculptures and whatnot. It's just a cool place to go in and look around at all the funky stuff that are down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good.
Well, guys, that's all our questions. It was a good discussion. Scott, appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Make sure to join us every Thursday. We try to take questions on creative finance. So if you've been thinking about it or want to engage with us, Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. is the Arizona time's the time to do it. So with that, guys, we'll call it. Thanks for being with us.
Good seeing you guys.
All right.
See,
have a
Sean,
good
if you
night.
were here, you could see me in person. What is wrong with you?
Jeez.
Yes, this is
I
a
know.
disappointment.
Terrible.
You'll have to share your schedule with me from now on.